Hold up. Deliveries go to the loading dock.
I'm not delivering. I'm here for the board on 40.
Board? Yeah, no. You don't belong up there.
Say the policy you're enforcing out loud.
I need ID and I'm verifying.
Scan it. Chief Equity Officer. If you stop me because I'm black in denim, own that on camera.
Officer Frank Miller had been manning the front desk at the Vanguard Pinnacle Group in downtown Chicago for over a decade. The last 7 of those years were spent at the main headquarters, one of the most prestigious investment firms in the Midwest. He had racked up numerous complaints in those 7 years. Multiple separate incidents where black attorneys, Latino executives, and Asian investors were stopped, grilled, and redirected toward the freight elevators because Miller decided they didn't look like they belonged in the C-suite. Every single complaint had been brushed off as a simple misunderstanding. The building management called him vigilant. His supervisor called him old school. No one called him what he actually was, biased. But on a windy Tuesday morning in the Loop, everything about Frank Miller's protected bubble was about to pop. Music. My name is Dr. Marcus Thorne, and I had just arrived at 100 North Riverside to attend a meeting that was supposed to redefine the future of Vanguard Pinnacle. I was the firm's newly appointed Chief Equity Officer. I was brought on board after a messy discrimination lawsuit and a federal inquiry forced the company to finally look in the mirror. I hold a PhD in organizational psychology from Yale, have 2 decades of experience consulting for Fortune hundreds, and have published extensive research on unconscious bias in corporate leadership. I've been featured in the Wall Street Journal. I've advised the White House. But that morning, I was just a black man in dark denim and a navy blazer carrying a leather satchel. And to Officer Frank Miller, that visual data only computed to one conclusion: courier maintenance or food delivery. Someone who had no business on the executive floor. That single false assumption sparked a chain reaction that would lead to Miller's termination, a viral clip with 40 million views and a massive wrongful detention settlement. Before I go on, where are you tuning in from? If this is your first time listening to my channel, please hit that subscribe button. We need to keep shining a light on stories like this, and your support helps us do that. Downtown Chicago, the financial heart of the city where steel giants scrape the gray sky and billions of dollars flow through fiber optics and handshakes. The Vanguard Tower stood 60 stories high, housing hedge funds, legal giants, and consultancy firms. The building had 3 distinct entry points: the main lobby for general staff, the loading dock for vendors, and the executive portal for senior leadership and board members. I walked toward the executive portal at 8:47 a.m. on a crisp Tuesday. The wind was whipping off the river, and the sidewalks were packed with commuters in heavy coats and tech workers in fleeces. The executive portal featured Italian marble-polished chrome and a security station staffed by officers who acted as the gatekeepers to the kingdom. I was 48 years old. I had built my entire life's work around studying how implicit bias dictates organizational choices, how we conflate competence with looking the part, and how exclusion happens not through written laws, but through split-second decisions made by people who claim they don't see color. I'd written 3 bestsellers on the topic. I'd consulted with over 50 multinationals. I had helped architect inclusion protocols for Silicon Valley giants. Yet that morning, I was about to become a living, breathing case study of the exact toxicity I was hired to dismantle. I had been with Vanguard Pinnacle for 6 weeks, brought in after the company settled a massive class action suit. 3 black analysts had sued, citing systematic exclusion from leadership tracks. The settlement was $7.5 million. Part of the mandate was hiring an independent chief equity officer with the power to audit fire and report directly to the chairman. I was that hire, My debut presentation to the board of directors was set for 9 a.m. sharp. I had done my homework hiring data retention analysis, anonymous culture surveys, and a roadmap for structural overhaul. I had my MacBook, my slide deck, and my executive credentials. I was 15 minutes early, which is late in my book. I approached the glass doors wearing fitted dark jeans, a navy blazer over a crisp Oxford, and loafers. Professional modern, but not a stiff suit. I never believed in code switching my wardrobe just to make people comfortable. Officer Frank Miller was standing behind the podium inside the glass. He saw me coming, and his brain ran a faulty algorithm. Black male casual vibe leather bag, no tie, must be a courier, definitely not a heavy hitter. Miller stepped out and physically blocked the doorway with his arm. Hey, hold up, buddy. You with a delivery service loading dock is around the corner. I stopped cold. I had dealt with this before, less frequently, as I got older and wealthier, but enough to know the script by heart. The assumption, the physical block, the casual disrespect that happens when someone decides your silhouette doesn't match the scenery. I'm not making a delivery, so, I said, keeping my voice calm. I have a meeting on the 40th floor. Miller's music eyes darted to my bag, then back to my face. Meeting with who facilities ye? There it was. The leap of logic that a black man heading to the C-suite floor must be there to fix a toilet, not to fix the company culture, not to advise the people managing a $30 billion portfolio. I kept my tone neutral. No, with the board of directors. Miller let out a short, sharp breath, not quite a laugh, but a noise of pure skepticism. The board, yeah, okay, wrong door, pal, you don't belong up there. I felt that familiar cocktail of exhaustion and clinical interest rising in my chest. This was textbook. The absolute confidence in his error. The certainty he felt in policing the boundaries of power. The total lack of self-reflection. Really, I asked, why do you say that? Miller shifted his stance, his confidence wobbling just a fraction. He opened his mouth, then shut it. He didn't have a policy to quote. He had a bias, a gut feeling that a guy looking like me couldn't possibly be a peer of the men in suits walking past us. Music. I just know, okay. The defensive edge in his voice gave him away. He knew he was on thin ice, but his ego wouldn't let him back down. He was operating on instinct, and his instincts were flawed. My voice dropped an octave, shifting from conversational to surgical. No, you assumed, and that assumption is the precise liability I was hired to remove. Do you think security personnel should have to cite a specific violation before barring entry? Tell me in the comments. Miller's jaw tightened. I had bruised his ego. Look, I don't know who you think you are, but I need to see ID, and I need to call up to verify before you take one step further. I reached into my bag, moving slowly so as not to spook him. I am reaching for my credentials. My name is Dr. Marcus Thorne. I am the Chief Equity Officer for Vanguard Pinnacle. I was hired 6 weeks ago. I have a 9 a.m. keynote with the executive board regarding the systemic bias infecting this firm, and you have just provided the perfect opening slide. I produced my wallet and slid out my Vanguard hard pass. The badge featured my headshot, my full title, and a holographic strip that authorized 24/7 access to all secure zones. I held it at eye level. Miller looked at it, really looked at it. His expression twitched as the facts began to war with his prejudice. That could be a vendor pass. I need to call the 41st floor. My patience was evaporating. That is a staff executive badge, not a visitor pass. It has my photo, my title, and my biometric code. You have a scanner right there. It will tell you I have level 5 clearance. I still need to call up. Then call. But understand this, you stopped me because you decided a black man in denim couldn't possibly be a board member. You didn't ask for ID first. You didn't check the log. You led with delivery guy and facilities. That isn't security work, Officer Miller. That is racial profiling. Miller's neck turned a blotchy red. I'm just doing my job. Your job is to verify access, not to police appearance. If you had asked for my badge first, we would be in the elevator. But you didn't. You decided I was an outsider before I opened my mouth. A small audience had formed. A VP of marketing I recognized. 2 junior associates. They paused, sensing the tension. One of the associates quietly lifted his smartphone and started recording. Miller saw the phone. His bravado deflated. Sir, I'm going to need you to step to the side while I figure this out. I am not stepping anywhere. Scan the badge. Call the chairman. Do your job. But I am not moving until you acknowledge the credential I am holding in my hand. Miller retreated behind the marble desk, my badge in his grip. He tapped it against the reader. Beep. The light turned solid green. Access granted. Executive level. Dr. Marcus Thorne, Chief Equity Officer, active status. The monitor confirmed everything I had said. Miller stared at the screen, the gravity of his mistake settling in like wet concrete. He had detained a C-level executive. He had insulted him. He had done it in front of staff and a rolling camera. Music. I walked up to the desk. Does the system concur with my statement? Miller's voice was barely a whisper. Yes, you're clear. And the title on the screen was Chief Equity Officer. I leaned in, keeping my voice low but intense. Let me ask you a question, Frank. When you see a white man in jeans and a blazer, do you ask him if he's delivering lunch, or do you assume he's a tech consultant, an investor, a creative director? Miller said nothing. I'm just being safe, he muttered. No, you're being biased. You are enforcing a caste system based on optics, and that is exactly why I am here, to show this firm how bias rots the foundation, how it starts right here at the front door. Congratulations, Frank. You just volunteered to be the case study. I took my badge back from his trembling hand. Music. I'm going upstairs, but I want your full name, badge number, and your supervisor's direct line, because this interaction will be documented, reported, and screened for the board in exactly 10 minutes. Miller looked sick. Sir, I was just being cautious. Cautious of what? I am a middle-aged man with a laptop bag. What was the threat? Or did you just see black skin and perceive unauthorized? The VP of marketing stepped forward. I saw the whole thing, Marcus. She was visibly agitated. He blocked you before you even touched the handle. Didn't ask for a thing. Just assumed you were a courier. I nodded to her. Thank you, Sarah. Will you go on record with that? 100%. This was absurd. The young man with the phone spoke up. I got it all on video, sir. The whole exchange. Do you want me to airdrop it to you? Please, I said, handing him my card. That footage is critical. Do you think profiling incidents like this should be part of mandatory HR onboarding? Let me know your thoughts. Miller realized the walls were closing in. Sir, can we maybe talk about this in the back office? There is nothing to talk about in the back. You profiled me publicly. You questioned my right to exist in my own workplace publicly. This isn't a private misunderstanding. It's a public pattern, and I intend to break it. I walked past the desk toward the elevator bank. The crowd parted. People were whispering. Welcome to Vanguard, Dr. Thorne, someone said softly. Sorry about that. By the time I hit the 40th floor, the grapevine had done its work. My executive assistant met me at the lift. Dr. Thorne, my God, we heard. Are you okay? I'm fine, but your front desk just gave me the perfect intro for my presentation. Is the room full? Packed, they're waiting. I walked into the boardroom at 8:58 a.m. 12 of the most powerful people in finance sat around a massive oak table. The CEO, the CFO, the general counsel. They had read my briefs, they knew the stats, but they didn't know I had a fresh raw data point from 15 minutes ago. "Good morning," I said, dropping my bag and connecting my laptop to the main screen. "I was hired to diagnose the systemic flaws in this organization. I've spent weeks crunching numbers. I plan to start with charts. Instead, I'm going to start with what happened to me 11 minutes ago in your lobby." I opened the file the associate had sent me and hit play. The video filled the room. Miller blocking the door. The delivery guy comment. The refusal to look at my badge. The dismissal. The arrogance. The room went dead silent. The CEO looked like he had swallowed a lemon. The general counsel buried her face in her hands. "This," Sivaton said as the video ended, "is the tax we pay." Officer Miller didn't verify my ID. He verified his own prejudice. He decided I didn't fit the Vanguard look. And when I corrected him, he fought me on it. "This isn't a rogue bad apple. This is the culture." The CEO stood up. "Marcus, on behalf of the firm, I am mortified. That is indefensible. Apologies are nice. Policy is better. Accountability is best. Your security vendor needs to be put on notice. Frank Miller needs to be removed from this post. And we need mandatory rigorous bias training for every single person who holds a set of keys to this building." "Done," the CEO snapped at his assistant. "Get the security firm on the line. I want that guard gone within the hour, and I want a review of their entire contract." I continued my presentation. I showed them the hard numbers, the hiring gaps, the fact that Black and Latino staff took 3 years longer to get promoted than white peers with the same KPIs. The exit interviews where 70% of minority staff cited lack of belonging. Music. The survey data showed half the non-white staff felt invisible or targeted. The board watched. They squirmed. They couldn't argue with the video or the spreadsheets. By the time I finished, I had signed commitments for a complete policy overhaul, a dedicated budget for inclusion, and an independent review panel. As I packed up, the CEO walked over. "Dr. Thorne, we are serious about this. This morning proved exactly why we need you." I looked him in the eye. "I appreciate that, but you have to get this. I have a Yale PhD. I have a C-suite title. I have a badge." And I still got stopped. Imagine the kid coming in for an internship interview. Imagine the vendor trying to pitch a contract. Imagine anyone who doesn't have my resume. That is who we are failing. Within hours, the video leaked. It jumped from internal chats to GroupMe, then to Twitter/X, then everywhere. By evening, 50,000 views. By the next morning, 5 million. By the weekend, 40 million people had watched me calmly dissect Officer Miller's bias. The headlines were brutal equity chief profiled at OWN HQ, security guard blocks, black exec, delivery guys in the back. Viral video exposes corporate gatekeeping. Frank Miller was fired within 2 days. His security firm lost the Vanguard contract entirely. A new vendor was brought in with strict inclusivity mandates. I filed a formal complaint. In doing so, I uncovered 6 other reports from the last year other black professionals stopped by Miller. They had all stayed silent, thinking it was just how things are. The lawsuit followed 2 months later. Not just me, but 3 other plaintiffs who recognized Miller from the video. All professionals, all stopped, all humiliated. The claims: racial profiling, civil rights violations, negligence. The security firm settled for $3 million. I received $1.2 million. I donated half to legal defense funds for workplace discrimination victims. Should corporations be held financially liable for the bias of their third-party vendors? Sound off below. Frank Miller, Music, issued a statement through a lawyer. I made a mistake. I should have checked ID. I apologize to Dr. Thorne. My response was public and clear. A mistake happens once. A pattern happens over years. You didn't make a mistake. You practiced a habit, and it took a global audience to break it. Vanguard Pinnacle changed. Real change. Every guard was retrained. New protocols meant you asked for ID before you made a judgment. A whistleblower hotline was created. My department grew. I testified before the city council about corporate gatekeeping. I didn't want to be a #she. I told them. I just wanted to go to a meeting. But what happened to me is the daily reality for millions. The guard who thinks you're lost. The receptionist who assumes you're the driver. The peer who asks to see your credentials when they don't ask anyone else. I paused. I had the armor of success, the degree, the suit, the title, and it wasn't enough to protect me from being seen as less than. So what happens to the people without the armor? The ones just trying to get a foot in the door? How many dreams die in the lobby because a Frank Miller decided they didn't look the part? The video is now standard curriculum in HR departments nationwide. My approach, calm, documented, firm, became a blueprint for handling bias. But the message remains the same. This wasn't about my bruised ego. It was about a system that empowered a guard to enforce a racial hierarchy. It's about the silent assumptions that govern who gets to be in charge and who gets to serve. Frank Miller's career is done. That's a consequence. The firm paid millions, that's a penalty. But checks and firing slips don't erase the feeling of being an intruder in your own life. The real work is asking what changes now. Music, do we audit our gatekeepers? Do we admit that professionalism is often just a code word for exclusion? Do we realize that diversity is a joke if people can't even get past the lobby? Because if we don't dismantle the mindset that allowed Miller to operate for a decade, if we don't challenge the reflex to see a black man in casual wear as help, then we are just waiting for the next viral clip, the next lawsuit, the next person forced to prove they are worthy of the space they occupy. Comment below if you believe zero-tolerance policies for profiling are the only way forward. Author's note, an educational disclaimer. This story has been retold based on real events for educational and illustrative purposes. The names of all individuals, Dr. Marcus Thorne, Officer Frank Miller, the specific company Vanguard Pinnacle, and the location Chicago have been changed to protect the privacy of the real individuals involved and to prevent any unintended harm. The goal of this story is to educate the audience on the realities of unconscious bias, racial profiling, and the importance of systemic accountability in the workplace. It serves as a lesson in recognizing prejudice and the value of standing up for dignity and equality. If you believe that stories like this have the power to change minds, and if you support the fight for a world where we are judged by our character and not our complexion, please hit that subscribe button. We will keep telling the truth. We will keep demanding better.